What's up, everybody? Good morning and happy Thursday, January 2nd. DK show up on the air on your radio dials, 105.1 FM, 790 AM. Also available online, sportstalk1051.com. You got your Google and Alexa home devices. You've got the video streams are also up and rolling on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter here this morning. Bring it up on your on your little TVs, if such, if you got smart TVs and that. But good to be back after a little bit, little time off, spending with some family and such. So good to be back here. Happy New Year, everybody out there. What do we got on a good old game plan for us here this morning? Back into the regular swing of things here. Yesterday, Packers returning to practice yesterday to get ready for their regular season finale against the Chicago Bears. That wasn't the main story yesterday, right? That wasn't the big news story yesterday. Finally, we got some answers on Jaire Alexander. Matt LaFleur yesterday indicating that Jaire probably done for the season, done for the regular season, as he will be, or he did, according to Adam Schefter, underwent PCL knee surgery on Tuesday, so a couple days ago. Now, according also to Adam Schefter, if the Packers were to make it to the Super Bowl, Jaire could return for that game, but nonetheless, he's done up until at the earliest for that game. So finally got some answers. I mean, Matt LaFleur was asked about it was it after the game or on Monday after the loss to the Vikings last week? It was really kind of head scratching. He was point blank asked, is there disagreements between Jaire and the Packers in terms of him getting back on the field? And he was kind of, he said he can't really get into it, but did acknowledge that at that point he was dealing with some swelling and such. But we finally have some answers here in terms of what's been plaguing Jaire. He tried to rehab it, tried to get back on the field, re-aggravated that injury. Was it in the Chicago game after the bye? And hasn't been the same since. And considering the contract situation for Jaire, and you look at the last couple of years of him not, I'm not being on the field a ton, missing a ton of games, one has to wonder if we've seen the last of Jaire Alexander in a Green Bay uniform. And I have to wonder about that. So, first things first, though, how big of a loss is this for the Packers as we get set for a postseason run? Packers currently right now 7th seed. They would, first of all, need to beat the Bears this weekend and hope that their old friend Mike McCarthy can help them out and beat the Commanders this weekend to move back up into that 6th seed. That's the difference between the 7 and the 6 seed here. 7 seed, you're going to be going up against Philly and going on the road to play Philly. 6 seed, you're talking about maybe going out west to the Rams, Tampa or such, but maybe it doesn't matter at this point. But that's kind of what's at stake here. Matt LaFleur also indicating yesterday that if guys are healthy, they're going to play. Starters, if they're healthy, they're going to play. He did acknowledge, though, too, that they understand the situation. Essentially what he's saying is like, okay, if there's guys that are banged up, we're probably not going to force it too much. We're not gonna, if this was a must-win game, then maybe we'd push the envelope a little bit with some of these guys and get them on the field. But still have something to play for here this Sunday against the Bears at noon. Difference between a 6 and a 7 seed here. But I do want to talk a little bit about Jaire coming up here in just a little bit, and just how big of a loss is this for the Packers for their postseason run coming up here. The difference with Jaire on the field this year compared to when he's been off the field this year, some numbers to throw at you, some stats, some statistics, and all that fun stuff. But also players that really kind of have to rise to the challenge, have to fill in the void. We've seen Eric Stokes getting more playing time this year. Obviously, Carrington Valentine. You're seeing some adjustments with Keyshawn Nixon and such. So, I mean, taking a look at that. And then, is this the end of Jaire in Green Bay, the end of 2-3? Do you think it's time for him to move on? Do you think the Packers should move on? I think a lot of us would agree. I don't want to get into a full-on off-season talk here, but I think a lot of us would agree, even if Jaire was on a team, corner is probably a position that they're going to be looking at. And, well, if they decide to move on from Jaire, that's going to be a position of even greater need in the offseason, whether it's free agency or the draft. And keep this in the back of your mind here, too. Coming into this upcoming offseason, Green Bay is going to have a little bit more to spend. They're going to have a little bit more cash to spend. A couple years ago, they were kind of hamstrung with Rodgers' contract and such, dead money in that. Last year, this past offseason, yes, they paid for Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs, but still paying off a little bit with Bakhtiari and such. This year, they're going to have a little bit more monopoly money to play with in this upcoming offseason. But we got plenty of time to talk about the offseason because we're still in this finishing up the regular season and heading into the postseason here. So definitely want to talk a little Jaire since it is New Year's Day, or it was yesterday, heading into the new year here. I want to have a little fun with this, and I need your picks, your input. Need you to participate in this. Your New Year's resolutions. You don't have to do all of them, but if you wanted to, you'll get extra credit here. But your New Year's resolutions for the Packers, Brewers, Bucks, Badgers, and that could be football, basketball, hockey, whatever you want. You want to throw, if you're a diehard Marquette fan or anything else out there, what are your New Year's resolutions? What are your goals for this team? What are your, what do you want to see different? What do you want to see from this team in 2025? These franchises and such. I've got mine, but I want to get yours. So think about that for a little bit coming up here as well. We got some receiver defer coming up around 7:40. Again, riding solo. So if you've got any receiver defer questions that you'd like to toss out there, I'm all ears. All right, hit me up with a text 715-830-1912 on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line this morning. Also, we'll do some chatting outdoors with Jake Boakes coming up at 8:30. It's been a couple weeks since we chatted with Mr. Jake Boakes, our Wisconsin DNR warden buddy. I know too a lot with we did have a warmer stretch of weather here, so maybe some of the frozen ponds, frozen lakes, and such with ice fishing be a little unsafe out there. But we got some colder temps coming up, so if you are a diehard ice fisherman, you'll be able to get out there probably sooner rather than later. But we'll hit that up. We'll talk a little college football here too, with the college football playoff continuing to roll on. We do have another game tonight. It was the game we were supposed to get last night, Notre Dame and Georgia, but that was moved to this afternoon at 3 p.m. because of the awful, tragic events in New Orleans on New Year's Eve night. So they moved the game to this afternoon, 3 p.m. kickoff between Notre Dame and Georgia. But Penn State has moved on. Texas moving on after a double overtime game against Arizona State. And Ohio State dominating the top seed Oregon in a rematch from their regular season game. But Ohio State now moving on. So we've got Texas and Ohio State matching up for the right to go to the national championship. Penn State awaiting the winner between Notre Dame and Georgia. Bucks are also in action coming up tonight, coming off of a win against Indiana a couple days ago. They're going up against the Brooklyn Nets. Timberwolves are also in action tonight as well, as they will be going up against the Celtics. So plenty to get to here this morning. Let's jump right into it. Coming up on the leadoff, we'll talk a little green and gold as we get set for the regular season finale against the Chicago Bears. A little bit of a longer injury report from practice yesterday. So we'll see what it kind of looks like today. It was kind of a jog through practice yesterday, but the big one, the big news out there, Jaire, done for the season. Although you do have the Adam Schefter report out there that he could return for the Super Bowl potentially, but got to win to get there first, right? So let's talk some green and gold here this morning. Talk a little Jaire here this morning to lead things off. First up, we'll take a quick break and then get things rolling here. Back to our regularly scheduled programming, right? Quick break. Hit me up with those texts, all right? 715-830-1912. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Obviously, with the new year, you probably have some New Year's resolutions. Maybe some of you do, maybe some of you don't. And when you think about New Year's resolutions, a lot of people probably think about themselves, how they can better themselves. Why not better maybe your home, the space you're living in, your workspace, if you are an employer or business owner and such? Well, you start with the flooring. You work from the ground up, right? And that's why you can visit our good friends at Carpet City Flooring Center in Eau Claire for your New Year's resolutions of bettering your home, your business with your flooring needs. It's probably time to update some of the flooring. Let's be real. Take a look. Think to yourself, like, yeah, I could probably redo some of the carpet in the bedroom, or I really want to this year focus on building up my man cave or such. Well, give our good friends at Carpet City Flooring Center a visit, 3109 East Hamilton Avenue in Eau Claire. Even if you're not quite sure where to begin, where to start, how to start, what works in your budgets, what will look good in your space, they got you covered because they'll help you from start to finish. Again, it's our good friends, Carpet City Flooring Center, 3109 East Hamilton Avenue in Eau Claire. All right, let's get things going here this morning, shall we? Let's obviously talk a little green and gold as, well, it's Thursday already, but we're just a couple days away from the regular season finale against the Chicago Bears. Packers have a little bit, they got something to play for here a little bit if they value moving up potentially one spot in the playoff seedings, because currently they are the 7th seed, and if the playoffs started this weekend, they would be on the road visiting their week 1 opponent, the Philadelphia Eagles, who are, sounds like, going to be resting their starters this weekend. No Saquon Barkley breaking the rushing record. Eric Dickerson can pop some champagne and such. But yesterday at practice, you had no Jaire, you had no Christian Watson, you had no Quay Walker, no Evan Williams, Brenton Cox Jr., Zane Anderson, Andre Dillard. Devontae Wyatt was participating, even though he left the game due to a concussion against the Vikings. Elton Jenkins, a lot of the reporters there, they had listed him as not participating, but Matt LaFleur said he was a limited participant, probably mostly, just veterans type of thing. That's kind of been like that all season long with Elton. But the big news yesterday with Matt LaFleur acknowledging that Alexander is most likely done for the season because of his knee injury. Had surgery on Tuesday, and he tore his PCL in week 8 against Jacksonville. We remember that game. He was running through the end zone, kind of came up hobbling. Tried to return in week 11, re-aggravated it against the Bears. Tried to rehab it on his own. I mean, we've talked with Dr. Crow about it a few times in our Inside the Training Room segments on Fridays, and think one of the topics we're going to be talking to Dr. Crow about tomorrow. But just couldn't get her going. Just apparently dealing with some swelling and some pain in that knee. Just Jaire could not get back on the field. So now has undergone surgery and possibly, according to Adam Schefter, could play in the Super Bowl if the Packers were to make it that far. So we'll talk about Jaire here in just a sec. But what's the plan for Green Bay with some of their starters this weekend? Matt LaFleur pretty much said starters will play if they're healthy. Said the Packers will play all their healthy players against the Bears, especially after their performance against Minnesota this past Sunday. Quote, I think there's value going out there and playing well. Probably want to get some of that bad taste out of their mouth from that game on Sunday against the Vikings there. But I think they're also, as Matt LaFleur alluded to, they're cognizant of, if guys are dealing with some stuff. I don't think they're going to push the envelope too much with certain guys out there, but expect Jordan Love and a lot of those guys to be playing this Sunday at Lambeau against the Bears. So they got to win, and then we need some help from Mike McCarthy and the Dallas Cowboys to take down the Commanders for the Packers to move back up into that 6th spot, that 6th seed in the postseason. So things are going to get a little bit difficult, more difficult, though, for Green Bay as they make this push to the playoffs and once they get into the postseason. Jaire Alexander, done. What does it mean? How big of a loss is this for the Packers in this postseason run? Well, I think it's a fairly big loss for Green Bay. Just a couple of nuggets, couple of notes to share with you, just kind of the difference of what Jaire has made for this defense when he's been on the field. This according to Next Gen Stats. Packers are allowing a 61 completion percentage and just a 77.5 passer rating when Jaire is on the field this year. When he was on the field this year. When he's off the field, when he's not playing, the Packers are allowing a whopping 70.7 completion percentage and a 95.3 passer rating without Jaire Alexander. So yes, Jaire Alexander makes a difference when he's on the field. And he's made a difference on the field this year. And we've talked about it at length throughout the season, especially when it's come to the secondary. I mean, Jeff Hafley is a secondary coach by trade. That's his background. And there's been more than just a couple times this year where they have had to really, really shuffle their secondary, their safeties, their corners due to injuries, whether it's been Jaire, Evan Williams, Javon Bullard. I don't think Hafley too many times this year has gone out there with the secondary that he wants on the field more times than not. I mean, Xavier's been out there. He's a big Keyshawn Nixon fan. And I think they've gotten some solid play out of Keyshawn Nixon, maybe a little bit of surprising solid play out of Keyshawn Nixon this year. But we haven't had a ton of games with Jaire. Evan's been dinged up a little bit. Javon Bullard's been dinged up a little bit, and he's been playing, I think, out of position quite a bit because you're doing so much shuffling. And even in that game against Minnesota, right away with Zane Anderson getting out with a concussion, they had to move the secondary around again, putting guys in different spots. So I feel like Hafley, a lot of times this year, hasn't been able to go out there with his secondary and go out there with that A group, if you will, that A team of his backfield or his the secondary, the defensive backs out there. So the numbers show how important Jaire has been on the field this year when he's out there playing. So yes, it's going to be a challenge without him. It's going to be a challenge for this Packers team to advance throughout this postseason without one of their better players on the defense on the field. And when you look at the teams in the NFC and you look at it, I mean, they've got some weapons on the outside. I mean, you look at Philly, all right? I know they've been dealing with some injuries at the quarterback position and such. I would expect Jalen Hurts probably to be playing in that game if it is Packers versus Eagles in the wild card round there. Obviously, a lot of their offense goes through Saquon Barkley, right? I mean, to me, he should be a top 2 MVP candidate. But they've got weapons on the outside they could go to. A.J. Brown, Smith. I mean, they've got those dudes out there. You look at, obviously, Minnesota. Detroit's. We're very familiar with their receivers. You look at the Rams, and now I know the Rams' passing offense hasn't, the last couple of weeks, hasn't, been blowing the door off of anybody. After their performance against Buffalo where they scored like 1,000 points, it's kind of come down to earth here a little bit. But still, you look at Puka, you look at Cooper, you know what to expect from them. You look at Tampa Bay, Mike Evans over there, just, I think probably one of the most underrated receivers of all time. He's just so dang consistent and so dang good every single year. So you look at these NFC playoff teams out there, and they present a challenge potentially to Green Bay in terms of the passing department, in terms of receivers going up there. So who's got to step up, or how does Green Bay fill the void of one Jaire Alexander? Now, you're not going to be able to they don't have a player on the roster that can just step in and replace Jaire Alexander. They don't. But the players that have to step up, it's pretty darn simple. Eric Stokes, Keyshawn, Carrington Valentine. You look at the next three in line for the corner position. They've got to up their game another level. Keyshawn may be playing some good ball this year, some solid ball. Going to need a little bit more. Eric Stokes may be playing fairly well as of late. We need to continue to see that. We need to stack success. Matt LaFleur acknowledged that the other day too. Playing good ball, but we need to see that on a consistent basis. Carrington Valentine need to step it up a little bit more, just a little bit more. Everybody on the defensive side just has to up their game a little bit more. Javon Buller, wherever he's playing, if it's safety, if it's slot corner, nickel, whatever, he's got to up it a little bit more. It's got to come from the front. Going up against Minnesota, it was probably a pass rush that was, well, to put it politely, a little bit left to be desired. I mean, there were guys heading into that game where it was like, okay, they're maybe kind of finally starting to put it together. You know, you look at the advanced metrics out there, right? If you're into advanced metrics and football numbers and such, you're looking at all this. This was back on Christmas. I saw some of these numbers. Edge, defender, pass rush. These were Pro Football Focus numbers, okay? Edge, defender, pass rush, win rate. Brenton Cox Jr. since the bye. Okay, week 10. Brenton Cox Jr., number 1 in the league. 1 out of 87. Lucas Van Ness, number 3 in the league. Rashawn Gary, 12 out of 87. Enagbare was 67 out of 87. Not good. How about edge, defender, pass, rush, win percentage? I know it's a little bit different here. This was since the bye. Brenton Cox Jr., 3rd. Rashawn Gary, 8th. Lucas Van Ness, 9th. You had 3 pass rushers heading into this game against Minnesota. Okay, heading into this game, 3 pass rushers since the bye week. Week 10, that were 3 top 10 in terms of edge defenders, pass rush win percentage. If you believe in those metrics, if you're a believer, or maybe you are like, that's a tool, part of the toolbox, whatever the case may be. Those numbers prove, or those numbers show, these guys were starting to play a little bit better. Maybe they're starting to find a little bit of a groove in terms of the pass rushing department. But that game against Minnesota, it was fairly quiet. I mean, I'll give them a little bit of credit. Felt like in the first quarter, first half, I mean, they were getting some pressure on Darnold and such, and the corners were playing incredibly well, but give Minnesota credit, they adjusted. Then they started to move the football a little bit more. They weren't able to get home on some of those pressures, on some of those, trying to get Darnold down on sacks and such. So, I mean, that was a game that, I don't want it to overshadow what they have done the last few weeks, because I think you got to give, Brenton Cox Jr., Van Ness, and Gary some credit. But that game against Minnesota, when you kind of needed to step it up here a little bit, it wasn't great. It wasn't great against Minnesota. So, no Jaire for this postseason. You can't have games like you did against Minnesota. It's got to come from the front. You got to get to that pressure. You got to get it quick. You got to get after them quick. Help out your secondary. Hafley might have to be a little bit more aggressive in terms of bringing the blitz. Got to be smart with it too, because there's some good quarterbacks out there that just beat the blitz. It's not as simple as just bring up straight blitzing the whole time. Well, got to give some credit to the opposing quarterbacks out there, because you look at some of those advanced numbers, like Sam Darnold's pretty good against the blitz. Jordan Love's been pretty good against the blitz. There's quarterbacks that if they can read that at the line of scrimmage, they're going to beat it. How do you confuse? This is the challenge now that Jeff Hafley, I think, has to figure out. Once you're going to be getting in the postseason, whether your first game is going to be Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, or whoever the case may be, Matthew Stafford or whatever, you're going to be going up against some quarterbacks who have been around the block here a little bit and have played at high levels. it's going to be hard to confuse them with pre-snap looks and trying to disguise blitzes. So Halfley and his staff got to figure out, how do we confuse the quarterbacks we're going up against? If they make it far enough to where they play Sam Darnold again or Jared Goff again, how do they make it confusing against those guys? How do they try to disguise their coverages, their looks? Where's that blitz going to be coming? How do they get them in situations where it's 3rd and 8, where you can bring some heats and force that quarterback to get the ball out of their hands quickly? That's the challenge Halfley has to come up with, or has to figure out, with no more Jaire heading into the postseason here. You're losing your top coverage guy. You're losing your top corner, and you haven't had him. Let's be real. You haven't had him since week 8. You didn't have him against Detroit. You had him for 10 games against Chicago, not San Francisco, not Miami, not Detroit again. And you've won games against teams that have some good receivers out there. Yes, you beat Miami. Tua had a good game, though. Let's be real. I mean, you look at the numbers and you look at that, Tua had a good game. And you look at the different quarterbacks that they have played during that stretch. Okay, Jared Goff and that receiving threat. Chicago, San Francisco, you had a backup quarterback in there. Tua played well. Detroit again. They played well against Seattle and Geno Smith. Tip of the cap there. New Orleans, backup quarterback in. Then Sam Darnold. You're going to be playing up against some pretty darn good quarterbacks in the postseason here. So it's all hands on deck. Everybody's got to step up their game. It's got to be the pass rushers. It's got to be the linebackers. Edgerrin Cooper, when was the last time, by the way, going back to that Minnesota game? Yes, there was a few plays there, and there was a few plays with Cooper where it was like, okay, maybe a little too aggressive, or maybe that might not be the best way to phrase it, but he missed out on a few assignments, and Matt LaFleur, I don't know if he's trying to temper the expectations or just trying to kind of keep it level-headed, but, we've heard LaFleur a few times and Halfley a couple times here too say, yeah, guy's ascending. He's a great player in that. Still, got to get better in certain aspects. I'm paraphrasing a lot of this. But when was the last time that we watched a game, a Packers game, and we saw a Packers linebacker, not an outside linebacker in your 3-4 days, but an inside linebacker hit the hole or hit the outside hole or just weave through traffic and take down the ball carrier? There was a few times in that game where it sure looked like Aaron Jones was going to have a big run or a pretty darn, or was going to pick up some pretty good yardage. And then all of a sudden 56 is there. And you can see the frustration too from Aaron Jones, because I think Aaron Jones a few times thought, oh, I've got some daylight here. And then all of a sudden 56 just comes flying through and takes him down. I don't remember the last time we saw a linebacker, an inside linebacker from Green Bay, doing the things that we have been seeing from Edgerrin Cooper here lately. Now, can we ask just a little bit more from him heading into the postseason? Can we ask a little bit more from him? I think it's got to be all hands on deck. And this is, again, I think it's not just the defense. With the loss of a guy like Jaire heading into the postseason, it's not just the defense that, guys we got to ask a little bit more from. We got to, put a little bit more on Jeff Halfley in terms of scheme and game planning. But it goes back to the offensive side of things too, especially in that Minnesota game. Credit to Minnesota. Green Bay didn't get in that rhythm on offense that we have seen against New Orleans, Seattle, those long, sustained drives coming away with touchdowns. They never got in that groove. And yes, it kind of derailed right away with the Josh Jacobs fumble. When you're going up against games, and that's the other thing too, once we're getting into the postseason here, your top players can't be making mistakes like they were doing against Minnesota. Josh Jacobs can't be fumbling the ball in the opening drive. Zach Tom can't be whiffing on some blocks. Your top players have to perform at an incredibly high level. And they're going to have to do that once they get to the postseason here. But back to the Jaire thing. Not only is it the defense and defensive coordinator, they've got to step up their channel. It's got to be the offense getting back to that complementary football that we have talked about how many times throughout the year. The offense complementing the defense. Defense, Jeff Hafley, again, dealing with some injuries in the secondary, may not be able to do a lot of things that he wants to do. So, Packers offense, all right, we're going to run the football. We're going to have success running the football. We're going to take a bunch of time off the clock and not allow the opposing offense on the field go out there and have 6, 7, 8 minute drives or have explosive plays. Green Bay's got to get back to that. Having those long sustained drives, winning the time of possession, playing defense with your offense. But the key to that, though, too, you got to make sure you're not turning the ball over, and you got to be coming with touchdowns, and you cannot. That's the thing with that style of offense. You cannot dig yourself in a hole to where you're getting out of your game plan. You can't dig yourself into a 2-possession hole down by 2 scores and taking yourself out of that game plan. I want to talk a little bit more green and gold here. Another player who I think is pretty darn key to this squad that maybe doesn't get the recognition that he deserves here. But first up, quick break. We'll be back in just a couple minutes to finish up the first hour. It's our first program since we did Festivus last, Monday. Was it the last Monday, the 23rd? A lot of fun over there, but a big thanks to our good friends at VFW Post 305 for being such wonderful hosts while we were over there hanging out. A lot of you stopping by, hanging out with us as well. Had a ton of fun with the feats of strength and the airing of grievances and such. So, again, a big thanks to our good friends at VFW Post 305 for letting us hang out last Monday. Opening up a little bit earlier too for customers and such. It was just a really good time, really fun time, and honestly, can't wait to do it again next year. Can't if they allow us to do it again next year, I should say. But it was I got to give a big tip of the cap and a big thanks to Donna and the entire staff, the kitchen staff over there too. I mean, the wings that they were making back out there for our feats of strength, those guys did a fantastic job. Everybody was just so awesome over there. So a big thanks to our good partners, our good friends at VFW Post 305. All right, let's finish up the first hour here, continuing to talk a little green and gold. By the way, we've got a new Packers podcast. I know, another Packers podcast that's like probably 1,292,451 out there, but it's got a different spin on it. It's the 715 Green and Gold Tailgate, because I'm a firm believer that our area, 715 area and such, northern Wisconsin, sometimes we get a little overlooked with our sports fandom and our passionate fan base out there, because everything's either to the east side of the state or the south and such. So this one is this is the podcast that it's video series. Well, it's a video and audio podcast, so it's up on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, like Apple, Spotify, or at sportstalk1051.com. But it's a podcast for our passionate 715 Packers fans out there. So check it out. First episode I did a very quick one during break, because I didn't want to get yelled at by my wife. I didn't want to get yelled at by my wife for working during break and such, like she does sometimes. But nonetheless, it's up there. And again, it's going to be a video podcast and audio podcast, so you can check it out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. But it's repping the 715, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The ultimate podcast for Packers fans in the 715 area code. And one player we kind of talked a little bit about in that first episode. And we're going to have guests and friends on each week, so it's going to be a weekly podcast, and we're actually going to have guests and friends on each week. Got some stuff lined up coming up here too. But one of the players that we were talking about in that first episode, and he didn't play in the first game, in this previous game against Minnesota, it was Christian Watson. And I think you could tell the effect of having no Christian Watson in that game had on the Packers offense here too. I mean, how many times did the commentators, whether it was Brady or whatever, talk about the big plays, like there was no big plays or lack of big plays from Green Bay's offense and such, and especially when you're digging yourself into a deep hole. Christian Watson is a player, and it almost goes back to the conversation, or the poll, if we will, the informal poll that we had a few weeks ago. If you could only keep one for the next few years, who would it be, Watson or Dobbs? And it was close. Watson had the slight advantage from our voters out there. But I think this was also a game that really showed how important Watson is for this offense, because of his big playability, because of his ability to take the top off a defense. You heard Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur talk about this after the game, after the loss against Minnesota, that both of them said what caught them by surprise a little bit, and they weren't as quick to adjust to it, but what caught them by surprise a little bit was Minnesota playing more man coverage. They weren't expecting Minnesota to play that much man coverage, and I think that's a direct relation to the fact that no Christian Watson was in that lineup. That they didn't have their fastest receiver, their biggest receiver, their big play threat out there. And so with Minnesota, playing more man coverage. Your receivers, Romeo, Jaden Reed, those guys, they got to beat Dontavian. They've got to beat one-on-ones. They got to go out there and beat their guys cross street. Now, I think Green Bay could have done a better job of adjusting and getting more guys involved and scheming it up a little bit more. I think they could have done a better job with that. And they both acknowledged, Love and LaFleur both acknowledged that they were a little slow and not as quick to adjust to that, and that's a fault on them. But I also, you look at Watson, you look at box scores, and you look at stats. Does he have numbers like a number one wide receiver? No, he doesn't. But he affects the game in so many different ways. First of all, he's, I think, a very underrated blocker. And we know in this offense, Matt LaFleur wants his receivers to block. And I think all of their receivers do a really good job in the blocking department. But I think Christian Watson, we talk about Christian Watson's size and his speed and his big play potential. I think he's an underrated blocker. And he's a willing blocker over there too. But he affects the game in so many different ways. Changes what a defensive approach. Because I think if he's on that field, Minnesota's probably not playing as much man coverage. Maybe opening up things more for a Jaden Reed. Opening up things a little bit more in the middle for a Tucker Kraft. Opening up things more for Josh Jacobs in the running game. So he has an effect on the game when he's on the field. There's no question about it. Now, I don't know if he's going to play this weekend against Chicago. I hope he's playing in the postseason because I think he does. He's a very important part to what the Packers want to do on offense, what they want to accomplish on offense. He may not have the stats of a Justin Jefferson. He may not have, touchdown catches, double digits, and all that. But I don't think there's any question. Anybody who wants to say he's not a big part of this offense, I'm sorry, you're wrong. I'll call it what it is. He's a very big part of how this offense wants to roll. We'll talk some more Packers coming up a little bit later on. I want to talk a little bit about Matt LaFleur coming up a little bit later on as well. But also, I mentioned in the opener, but in case you're just joining us, coming up next hour, not only will we do some receiver defer, and you can hit me up with some receiver defer questions over there that you guys can play along with. But since it is January 2nd of a new year, what are your New Year's goals, your New Year's resolutions for your favorite Wisconsin sports teams, whether it's the Packers? If you want to do all of them, you can. If you want to just do one or a couple, that's fine. But what are your New Year's resolutions, your New Year's goals for the Packers, Brewers, Bucks, Badgers? You can pick football, basketball, whatever you want. If you're a diehard Marquette fan or a UW Green Bay, whatever. You pick and choose. I've got my picks for Packers, Brewers, Bucks, Badger football, Badger basketball. My 2025 goals, my 2025 resolutions. Now, I know it can be a little tricky when it comes to maybe a team like Green Bay that's wrapping up their season heading into the postseason. So you're probably looking a little bit more towards an offseason, or maybe you're looking at the playoffs for this current season. Bucks are, halfway through, getting close to halfway through their regular season as well. So maybe you're looking at goals or resolutions to finish off this season and getting into that postseason in the spring. Badger basketball getting into their full-on Big Ten portion of schedule starting tomorrow against Iowa. I think if you're a Badger football fan, your list is probably fairly long. That one's probably the easiest one to figure out, or to have a goals or a resolution list when it comes to Badger football. And the Brewers are in their offseason, so that one might be fairly easy coming up here too. But what are some of your 2025 New Year's resolutions, New Year's goals for your favorite teams out there? Okay, so I've got my list here, but I want to see your list. Share it with the rest of the class. You can text it. You can comment on the video stream, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook. By the way, big thanks, Tony, Josh, and Joe over there for saying welcome back. Appreciate it. or shoot me an email if you got a long laundry list there. So some of us make our New Year's resolutions, some of us make goals to better ourselves or what we want to accomplish this year. But if you had to do it for your favorite sports teams, okay? If you had to do it for your favorite sports teams, what would it be? See if any of ours match up here. Okay. So we'll get to that coming up next hour. I want to talk a little bit about the college football playoff. Your thoughts on what some of the games from yesterday. We got one more today because of the postponement with Notre Dame and Georgia. Ohio State dominating Oregon. They move on. They'll play Texas, who survived against Arizona State in double overtime. Penn State's moving on. They're awaiting the winner between Georgia and Notre Dame. So we'll talk a little college football playoff. Your thoughts, what you've seen so far. Do you like it? What would you change? Maybe that's a New Year's resolution. What would you change? It's probably a good one right there, right? But what would you change over there? Plus, receiver defer at the back end. Don't forget, if you have any questions for Mr. Bolks, Jake Bolks, our conservation warden buddy, he'll join us for some outdoor chat coming up at 8:30. So text me those questions for Jake so I can get those to Jake a little bit in a little bit here. So it's been a couple weeks since we've chatted with Jake here. So if you got any, no stupid questions, okay? I'm not saying don't ask. I'm saying like there is no such thing as a stupid question. That's what I was trying to get. So, but we'll get to that coming up at about 8:30 as well. So, got a couple of you already sending in some resolutions, so that looks good. All right, keep those coming. I'll add up that list here in just a little bit. G-Man chimed in a little bit earlier. Good to hear from you, G-Man. DK, this is a big loss. Talking about Jaire. This is a big loss for the Pack, and the Pack will win 30-10 against the Bears. Happy New Year to you and your family. Go Pack, go! You too, G-Man. I appreciate it, man. Big thanks. So, what else do we got here? We've got Eric had chimed in a little bit earlier. Jaire, definitely a big loss for the Packers in the postseason. I feel like this is a team that's just about a year away from being a Super Bowl contending team. Your thoughts? I honestly, I agree with that. Now, I maybe we'll get into this more because I only got about 30 seconds here till the shot clock cuts me off here. I can see this team going on a run into postseason. I can see this team being a one and done. But this team, and I talked a little bit about it in our new podcast, it gives me vibes of the 09 team because there's a lot of similarities. You have Jordan Love in his second year as a starter, Aaron Rodgers' second year as a starter. You had a new defensive coordinator coming in with a new defensive scheme. Dom Capers, that was his first year in Green Bay. You had young guys asked to contribute a lot on defense in 09, like this year. 09, Clay Matthews, BJ Raji, rookie years, Edrin Cooper, Evan Williams. Pass catchers were in their second, third year. We'll dive into that a little bit more coming up. So, quick break. We'll be back after these news updates. Second hour kicking off right now on this Thursday morning of January 2nd. Hey, appreciate you tuning in and making us a part of your start on this morning. Maybe for some of you, it's back to work, back to your regular routine, regular schedule, if you will, kind of like myself here a little bit. But well, thanks for picking us back up and making us part of your start here this morning. We spent a lot of time in the first hour talking a little Jaire, talking a little Packers and such, and we'll get back to some more of that conversation a little bit later on. I'm looking for some New Year's resolutions though, from all of you, not your personal ones, but if you had some for the Pack or the Badgers or the Brewers or the Bucks, your resolutions, your goals that you would like to see from some of your favorite teams. All right, I've got my list. All right, I got my list right here. If you're watching on the video stream, I've got my list right here. You're probably seeing me wave it up here on my notebook. But I want to see if any of ours match up. So hit me up with a text, shoot me an email, comment on the video stream over there. Whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, all those different platforms over there. So, going to get to that coming up. We got a few questions, or I should say, a few of you already sending in your questions for Mr. Jake Boakes, our conservation warden, who will be joining us at about 8:30. So appreciate that. Keep those coming. Keep those coming. All right, text those on over to us. So we'll get those to Jake. He'll be joining us at about 8:30 this morning. Let's begin this hour. I want to talk a bit about the college football playoff. So we got more results in, more games in the books from yesterday. Penn State's, a little bit earlier, day before, Penn State taking down Boise State 31-14. You had Texas taking down Arizona State in double OT 39-31. You had Ohio State dominating from the get-go against Oregon last night. Ohio State taking down the top seed Ducks 41-21. Then there was supposed to be the nightcap game last night, Notre Dame, Georgia, but that one getting postponed to 3 o'clock today because of the awful, tragic events in New Orleans on New Year's Eve. So that game now will be played this afternoon. The winner of that will face Penn State's. I don't know if are they terminated the Final Four at this point, but we got Texas versus Ohio State. Winner of that game will go to the national championship, and then Penn State versus whoever wins today. What has been your thoughts so far from the college football playoff? You liking it? Do they need some tweaking, a little bit of an adjustment here or there? What are your thoughts? So, like, the big thing that I think, when you're looking at some of this is, Boise State getting a bye. You had Arizona State making a nice comeback there and making it a game against Texas. But I'm looking at some of these games, and I don't know if this has been a topic that has been thrown out or anything. And I guess maybe we'll find out for sure at today's game if it's like 100%. But you look at some of these teams that had byes, out. Oregon, bye, out. Arizona State, out. Boise State, out. We'll see if Georgia, are they going to lose today against Notre Dame? It's a team with a bye, out. A little bit too long of a break for some of these teams. I don't know. I know one of the talks out there when it comes to this, and I would agree with this one, is instead of getting these, I think you just got to seed them like the basketball tournament, regardless if you're a conference champion and you get like the automatic bye. No offense to the Arizona States or the Boise States. You win that conference, and Boise State getting a 3 seed in this. I think get in. I'm fine with them getting a berth in this, but then you seed them just like college basketball tournament, 1 through 12. You got your automatic burst in. You've got your 12 teams in. Reseed them 1 through 12. I think that's going to happen eventually. I don't know if it'll happen right away next year. And I know that's been a talking point for a lot of people. A lot of college football people saying if this is one adjustment that they could do or that they would make, it would be to just kind of seed them all 1 through 12, regardless. Like if you won your conference and then you get that bye, that sort of thing. Automatic berth, perfectly fine with it. I'm good with it. But I like the fact that, okay, once you get your 12 in there, seed them like the college basketball tournament, 1 through 12. Then see how it all plays out. That's the one change I would do. I like the college football playoff format, the 12 teams that we have seen thus far, or the 12 teams, the playoff format so far. I like it. There's been some lopsided games. There's no question about it. At least we had the Texas Arizona State game yesterday that kind of provided a little bit of drama and a little close action. But I understand the fans out there, the college football fans out there, that maybe like, it's kind of been a little dull here because, well, you had Penn State's comfortable win and then Ohio State dominating Oregon. I thought that was going to be a good game. I didn't see Ohio State coming out as fast as they did and coming out dominating as quick as they did. But I think that's going to change. We'll see how today's game goes between Notre Dame and Georgia. But now with our final 4 teams coming up here, I think that we're going to see some closer games coming up. So maybe some better competition games coming up, if you will. I will say, I'm not a Michigan fan. Okay? I'm not a Michigan fan. But I did have to crack a smile a little bit to see Alabama lose. For all of the talk after the 12 teams that got in, all of the talk, whether it was from Saban or from Alabama or Alabama supporters, saying that they should have got in because of strike the schedule. Then you had the Alabama AD saying, oh, we might have to reevaluate, our schedule because if strike the schedule is not going to be the biggest factor or one of the biggest factors anymore, maybe we have to change. For them to lose to Michigan in their bowl game, as much as I'm not a Michigan fan, I did have to crack a smile a little bit because of all that chit chat and all of that talk out there saying how they should have been in the top in the college football playoff. And that, I guess we're going to have to change our schedule. Make it easier for us. You lose to Michigan in your bowl game. Kind of got some pleasure from that. I wasn't too disappointed to see that. Non-Alabama fans, I think, over there too. I think they were feeling pretty good too. I would agree with this. C-Bomb there. C-Bomb says they should do the same for the NFL. You win your division, that gets you in. But the seeding should take place 1 through 7 on both sides based off record and tiebreakers. Period. Yeah, that'd be something similar over there too. Yeah, seeding it there, best records and such, or however they want to rank them and all that. Oregon probably still would have been a 1, but maybe Boise State's probably not going to be a 3 seed. They'd probably be what, 10, somewhere down there. Yeah, get them in. I've got no problem with that. They're in, but then seed them, reseed them a little bit. So, all right, let's take a quick break here. I want to get into some resolutions, some goals. Come on, Packers fans, I know you've got some. What's your resolution? What's your goals for the 2025 season, 2025 year for the Green and Gold? It could be heading into this postseason. Could be an eye towards the offseason and such. Brewers, this is a perfect time for that. Okay. I had quite a few Brewers ones on here, actually. Badger should be an easy one, especially for Badger football. Bucks, maybe you got a few here coming up as we're approaching halfway through the season. You got a trade deadline and such. What do you got? Hit me up with your 2025 goals, 2025 resolutions for your favorite teams. You don't have to do all those teams. If you just want to do one, that's fine. You want to do one I didn't add on there? Go for it. All right. Hit me up with a text or shoot me an email if that's easier, or comment on the video streams. So, quick break, and we'll be back to talk a little 2025 goals and resolutions after these quick words. New Year's means new goals, new resolutions, all that good stuff. Who knows how long your goals and resolutions may last out there and such, but it's always good to start off a new year sometimes and be like, you know what, I want to do this. I want to try to figure out this. I got this goal, want to better myself, want to better, whatever the case may be. Well, let's put our own little sports spin on this, shall we? And come up with our sports goals, our New Year's resolution goals for our favorite teams, whether it's Packers, Brewers, Bucks, Badgers, maybe Marquette if you're a diehard Marquette fan and such. What are your resolutions? What are your goals for your teams this 2025 year? Hit me up with a text on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line, 715-830-1912. Or you can email it to me, Dan at sportstalk1051.com, if you'd rather do that over there too. I've got my list. So I've got 4, I guess 5, because Badgers I put under one category, but I got some for football and then some for basketball over there too. So, but I want to start it off my resolution list, my goals list with the green and gold, since we're approaching the playoffs here, and maybe for you, maybe for some of you, part of your goals will be, or resolutions will be, Super Bowl. Well, that's an easy one. 2025. Hey, let's start it off with the Super Bowl. Okay, we can all put that one in there. We can all put that one in there. But I guess for my resolutions, for my goals here when it comes to the green and gold for 2025, I had an eye towards the off season. March, April, May, whatever the case may be, draft time and such. I had an eye towards the off season with my goals and my resolutions here for Green Bay. One of my resolutions for Green Bay is, I think you got to find yourself a legit middle linebacker. Edgerrin Cooper's shaping up. I don't want to crown him yet, but he's shaping up to be a pretty darn good inside linebacker, weak side, strong side, that such. But I think I want Green Bay to finally address getting a legit, solid middle linebacker to pair up with him. I still feel like Quay Walker could be a solid linebacker. I think he's a little bit out of position. It's just my opinion. And I don't know how long he's going to be around. I don't think Green Bay is going to pick up the 5th-year option on him this upcoming offseason. I could be wrong, but I don't think they're going to do it. But I want a resolution and finally finding a legit, bona fide middle linebacker to pair up with Edgerrin Cooper. That's a goal. That's a resolution I want Goody and this Packers team to find this offseason, whether it's via free agency, draft, whatever the case. And to pair with that, another corner. Find a corner. Sign a corner, draft a corner, whatever the case is, regardless if Jaire is back or not. They need a corner. Now, if Jaire's gone, I think Eric Stokes is probably gone as well. If Jaire's gone, you're probably going to find a couple more, at least 2 more. If he's back, maybe you can get away with just getting one. High, and when I say just getting one, like a high one, whether it's a big free agent signing or a high pick in a draft. But regardless, we need another corner. And I want that to be a goal for the Packers in 2025. Is to find another corner, find another starting corner. Not a 4th on the depth chart, not a nickel corner, an outside boundary corner. Figure that out. Find that guy. Give Jeff Hafley the proper tools that he needs to really get the most out of the defense that he wants to run. That's what I want to see. That's a goal that I want to see Green Bay do. Another resolution, another goal that I would love to see the Packers accomplish. Well, I mean, you could say for this playoff push and for next year, bigger Well, consistency with the pass rush. You've had guys that are playing well, but then you look at Minnesota and it was kind of non-existent. Consistency. I want to start to see that. I want to start to see consistency at a high level, not consistency at an average level or a below average level, consistency at a flipping high level when it comes to the pass rush. Consistency from 52, Rashawn Gary. Consistency, better consistency from Lucas Van Ness, number 90. Is Brenton Cox Jr. a guy that could be a player in this league? I think it's still a little too early. Guy has shown flashes, no question. He's been getting more snaps, but again, I'm not ready to crown him yet. But let's get better at it, okay? I mean, I wanna get better at a dominant pass rush. Whether it's from the middle, whether it's from the edges, all across the board. Want that. I need it when it comes to this defense. So, I mean, we could create a huge list when it comes to Green Bay, right? I mean, we could, resolution here too. I mean, if Jaire, this could be a little bit of a sub one. If Green Bay decides to keep Jaire, goal, stay healthy. I know it's not that simple, and a lot of his injuries have been, you can't prevent necessarily a torn PCL and such. But hopefully a resolution for him is like staying on the field, staying healthy, that sort of thing. Let's move to the Bucs here because the Bucs are also getting on with their season right now. Consistency. I've got I want a resolution. I want a goal for the rest of this season heading into 2025. Consistency. Okay. Currently, when you look at the NBA standings right now, Bucs are number 5. Bucs are sitting in that 5 spot. And considering how bad they started the season, sitting in that 5 spot, so pretty solid. But that also kind of tells you the state of the rest of the Eastern Conference outside of Cleveland and Boston. Cleveland's still your top team at 29-4. Boston 24-9. Your third seed is the Knicks at 24-10. So really, when you kind of look at the standings, it's a 3-team. I don't know if race is the right word, but I mean the Knicks riding a 9-game winning streak right now have vaulted them up there because when you look at, then you got Orlando as the 4th seed, but they're 4.5 back from the Knicks, who are the 3rd seed. Now Milwaukee's only a game back from Orlando from that 4th seed. Miami is also same record as the Bucs here too. Just I want to see some consistent play. I was thinking about this the other day too. I don't know if I'm ready to put them in this category, but with their age and with the stars and the type of players that they have on this team, it's almost like it's a little Spurs-esque where they're just like treading water to get through the regular season. Then once they get to the postseason, that's like, all right, now we go. Because that was kind of like the Spurs with towards the end of the Duncan era. Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili. It's like, let's just tread water, get through this regular season. And then it's like they had an extra gear when it got to the postseason. And they were a veteran team, obviously. Veteran-led team. That's ideally what would be for the Bucs this year, but I'm not ready to put them in that category either. But consistency. I want to see that from this Bucs team. Health. Health's always a good New Year's resolution, right? It's always a good New Year's goal. Good health. I wish you good health. Well, this Bucs team, we need some good health, especially once we get to the postseason, because of the last couple of years, this Bucs team has not had some good health when it's gotten to the postseason, whether it's been Giannis, whether it's been Middleton, whether it's been Dame last year dinged up a little bit. Good health and good fortunes for this Bucs team once they get to the postseason. Let's stay healthy. Okay? No big injuries. Giannis is going to miss probably a few more games. Dame's going to miss a few more games before the playoffs. Middleton probably is too. Law of averages at this point. But once we get to the postseason, Let's have our guys available. And let's see what they can actually do at full strength. And I want to see bench production here. Now, that's not to say everybody on the bench has been awful for the Bucks. Bobby Portis has had some solid games this year when his number has been called and he's been asked to step up, whether it's been the absence of Giannis in some of these games. I mean, Bobby Portis right now is your third leading scorer on this team, behind Giannis and Dame. But Gary Trent has been up and down. AJ Green has provided some solid minutes, some solid defensive play, some solid three-point shooting. Prince has had a few moments here or there. But other than that, it's kind of been, well, who's it going to be tonight? Now, I don't know if Middleton is going to continue. I mean, he's played 10 games, started 5 of those. By the way, there's a crazy, did I save this? I think I saved it. A crazy stat here when it comes to Chris Middleton. Let me see if So, Bucks assist leaders this season. We've talked about Middleton since he's gotten back, kind of being like a point forward, being a little bit more of a distributor, distributing the ball. And you can tell that connection with him and Giannis kind of is just, it's like riding a bike, picked up right where they left off. So Dame leads this team with assists, 183 assists in 24 games played. Second is Giannis, 149 in 25 games played. Bobby's got 67 assists. He's third most. So you went from 183, 149 to 3 at Bobby. He's played 30 games. Okay, Bobby, big man down low, probably not going to, lead the league in assists anytime soon. But in 10 games played, Chris Middleton, fourth leading assist guy on this team, 55. 55 in 10 games. That's kind of the role that he has been. We talked about it before break. Kind of playing that point forward position, being a little bit more of the distributor on this. And I like it. But I want to see some improved bench play, some consistent bench play with this Bucks team, especially with how older they are with a lot of their stars, with their starting guys. Brewers-wise, some New Year's goals, some New Year's resolutions here. I still want them to find another power bat. You lose Willy Adames, which we all knew was going to happen. They probably could have used another power bat in that lineup last year with Willie in there. Reese, I mean, he his home runs were up there, but I think we were wanting a little bit more, expecting a little bit more from Reese Hoskins. I still want them to go out there and get another power bat. I don't know who that guy is at this point in time. I don't know who they're looking at. I don't know if it's going to be a free agent, if it's going to be a trade. But I still want a power bat to put in that lineup. I think they need another one. That's my goal. That's one of my goals for this Brewers team. Another one. Talk about health a lot. I think a good goal for 2025. Let's keep Christian Yelich healthy. What a bummer it was last year to see Christian Yelich playing at a level that he was playing. All-star. Starter in the All-Star game. It's like, hey. Okay, probably wasn't going to win MVP, but it was like, okay, this is the Yelly. He's back. Yelly's back. And then shortly after the All-Star game, done for the year. Let's keep this man healthy. Whether that's him playing more times than not as a DH, cutting his time in the outfield, whatever the case may be, we need Yelich healthy, especially if the Brewers are not going to acquire another power bat. I'm curious when we get to baseball season, spring training, regular season, and I know not to overanalyze, over-exaggerate, not overreact from the beginning of the season, but I'll be very curious to see what type of production we're going to get from Yelly this year, considering when we saw him this past season playing at that all-star level. But let's keep Yelly healthy this year. And a goal, I know this is a lofty goal, Brandon Woodruff back to being Brandon Woodruff. being a starter in this rotation, being the Brandon Woodruff that we have seen over the years. If we get that version of Brandon Woodruff, I feel a lot better about the starting pitching staff, adding him into that rotation. The thing is, we ain't going to know until he's in there, until we get to some games. But that's a goal. I want to see Brandon Woodruff back to being Brandon Woodruff. Because if he is, that's fantastic. And that would be a big boost. And I think a big morale boost for this ball club, too. Badgers. So I got a couple, a split between football and basketball here. I'll start off with basketball. My goal for 2025, I want to see this team be a Sweet 16 team this year. Might be a lofty goal, but I think this is a team, and a lot. Let's face it too. A lot of it depends on matchups when we get to the bracket, March Madness, and everything like that. But I think this team has the talent to potentially get to a Sweet 16. Talked about John Tanji. We got Blackwell. We've got some players on this thing. A big wild card for this is going to be Stephen Crawl and the consistency from him down low. But I want a goal for this Badger basketball team to be a Sweet 16 team this year. That's my goal because I think they can. Again, a lot's going to depend on the matchups, brackets, seedings, and all that. And I understand that. But I don't think it should be out of the question to say a goal should be Sweet 16 for this team. Football, I'm just going to leave this pretty darn simple when it comes to this Badger football team. Everything. Boy, what is a goal for the Badger football team in 2025? Okay, they've got a new offensive coordinator coming in. They're going to have some new quarterbacks in. But again, what's a realistic goal, expectation for this team? Resolution, I think, is a good one. Get back to running the football, which I think they're going to. I think they're going to with their new offensive coordinator coming in. So that's a resolution. Get back to running the football. Get back to playing Badger football. But a goal for this Badger football program? If we're talking about wins and losses, you know what? I think 6. I'm going to put it at 6. Just get bowl eligible. I don't care if it's Duke's Mayo Bowl. I don't care if it's Pinstripe Bowl, whatever. Get a little optimism. Be like, okay, now I can maybe start to see it. Because I don't think this upcoming year, based off the schedule that they've got and based off the moving parts, it could be similar to what we just saw. But I think we want to see the needle starting to go like, okay, there's something maybe I can get excited about for 2026. And I hate saying that, but I've got incredibly low expectations for this Badger football team coming up for 2025. But I think the goal is 6 wins, a resolution, get back to running the football, playing Badger football. I know it's not the sexiest thing and maybe not the thing that every team, the flashiest teams out there are doing, the speedy teams are out there doing, but you can still have success running the football. So those are just some of my resolutions, some of my goals for some of our Wisconsin sports teams this year for this upcoming 2025 year. Yours? We'll get to those, but we got to take a quick break here. Receiver defer. Last call for any receiver defer questions. Text those on over as well. I got a couple of them from you, so we'll get to those, but we'll finish up the second hour after these quick words. Big time shout out to our good friends over at Tilden Gun. Santa shopped at Tilden Gun this year, and Hutsy got his first 22. So we were able to take that out during break, and he tried it out there. But a big thanks to Tilden Gun for hooking up Santa with that gift for Hudson this year. And I know, hunting season's kind of winding down here and such, or maybe you're already checked out of the hunting season, you're moved on to ice fishing season and such, but let this be kind of your off season now. All right. Think about maybe you didn't get that deer rifle you wanted for Christmas or such, or maybe you're like, kind of taking this like it's a little bit of a training camp and such. The spring turkey hunting season is not going to be that far off, believe it or not. But if you're in the market, maybe looking for a new deer rifle, new shotgun, maybe a new handgun, whatever the case may be, Tilden Gun, our good friends over there, Sean, Hunter, they'll help you find just what you are looking for. Head on over to their shop. Oh, that little feed off there. Head on over to their shop, 12427 98th Avenue in Chippewa Falls. We've got Dave saying sports goals. I want to be invited to a 2-story beer bong at Camp Randall. Okay, we've got Aaron saying green and gold New Year's resolution. Spend a little money on the D this offseason. Let's strengthen that D for 2025 and make it a top 10 defense. Now that's a resolution, eh? I think they're gonna Green Bay's gonna have some money to spend this offseason. It's gonna be interesting to see how they spend it. Because I think for sure they need that. They need another corner, regardless if Jaire's back next year or not. They need at least one, possibly two. Maybe a linebacker to pair up with Cooper. It'll be interesting though, just to see if Green Bay does, because there's this prevailing thought, and it makes sense when you look at it. I mean, 2 years ago, it was, or excuse me, last year it was, Jordan Love's first year. It's like, okay, he had a lot of dead cap money, dead cap hits with Rodgers and such. Then this past offseason, yeah, a little bit more money. Obviously, you bring in Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs, but then you kind of had David Bakhtiari still in the books and that. But there's some thoughts out there that, okay, maybe this offseason Green Bay really kind of dips into free agency just a little bit more. A little bit more. And the expectation is that they're going to. Again, remember, this is different than Ted Thompson here. This is different. Goody spends. He doesn't spend willy-nilly like Howie Roseman or not Howie Roseman, Mickey Loomis down in New Orleans, to where they're like in salary cap HE double hockey sticks for years to come. He did with Rodgers a little bit. But maybe this could be a free agency. I mean, think about it, though. Last year was pretty fun. A couple years ago when it was Darius and Preston and Adrian Amos and Billy Turner. So I don't want to get hopes up too much, but okay, let's get to some receiver defer to finish up this second hour. Receive or defer time. Receive or defer. These are all from the texting line over here. So a big thanks to everybody who sent over some receive or defer questions. If I don't get to all of you, I apologize. I'm not doing it on purpose, but we do have quite a few that came in here. So big thanks for that. Receive or defer. Well, I mean, we might as well. I mean, this was somebody sent this one a couple times. Receive or defer. Jaire Alexander will be back as a Green Bay Packer next year. I'm gonna defer it. Now that's different than me saying I want him, because I wouldn't mind Jaire back next year. But I'm gonna defer it because I think you look at the money that's going to cost him next year is going to factor into the amount of time that he has played the last couple of years. I think that's all going to factor into it. Now, I could be wrong, but at this point in time, on January 2nd in 2025, I don't think Jaire will be back next year in Green Bay. Unless I don't know what the possibility is this could be because he's got like I think I was reading yesterday like $16 million in non-guaranteed salary next year that they can potentially move on. Now, one thing that could further complicate it could be something similar to when they moved on from Bakhtiari, injury settlements and injury. I don't have the full details of a contract, and I'm not going to pretend like I would understand the full details of a contract, but that's something that could be in play now here too. But just straight up, is he back next year? I'll defer it. I don't think he's going to be. Unless they feel like, hey, we need it. If we move on from him, that's a bigger hole instead of maybe just getting one high in the draft or free agency. Or maybe they say, hey, we're going to draft one and then get one in free agency. I don't know. But I'm going to say defer for now. On January 2nd, 2025, I defer on it. So we had one a little bit earlier. Let me go back down here. Receive or defer. The Packers will be a one and done in the postseason. I'll say what I said earlier. I can see this team winning a game, winning a couple games, maybe going on a little bit of a run in the postseason, but I can see this team being one and done in the postseason too. I don't like the matchup against Philly. I know there's after Philly dominated Dallas, there were some pessimistic comments from some of the commentators like, well, we don't know about the quarterback health going forward. I think Jalen Hurts is going to play by the time playoffs are out there. So I guess I'm not that worried about Jalen Hurts' availability for the postseason. I don't like that matchup. Going to Philly. Yeah, I guess if you're asking me right now, I might receive it that I think they're a one and done. I hope I'm wrong, and I may change it as we get there, but I'm gonna defer that or receive what? Yeah, I one and done right now. Receive or defer. This was a little bit earlier as well. I'm going whoever texted in first. Um, I'm giving them priority here. Receive or defer. Would you call targeting on the Texas and Arizona State game? Yeah, that was a big topic of discussion, especially on the socials, right? The targeting rule in college football. I mean, that has been a debate for ever since it came into play, right? I now I think ball don't lie. Yeah, Texas, missing the field goal there and such. Ball didn't lie, but I thought it should have been targeting. I thought it was. I thought it should have been. I think a case should have been made over there. So yeah, I probably would have received it. But that's such a tough. I backpedal or anything. Yeah, okay. It's called. But ball didn't lie, and Texas, missed that field goal there, and they were able to get to overtime in that. So, we'll do another receive or defer here before the. Oh, maybe we got time for a couple more. Yeah, we got time for a couple more. Receive or defer. Receive or defer. If you were running the Vikings, you would chain or you would trade JJ McCarthy and sign Sam Darnold to a long-term contract. Well, we've talked about this before. I think you try to sign Sam Darnold. I mean, at first, I think you try to, would he take a 3-year deal, a 2 or 3 year deal? You don't have to rush JJ McCarthy into this situation. You don't have to. I mean, it kind of plays into, the Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers thing. They could sit for a couple years. Now, the big thing would be, is Sam Darnold willing to do a shorter term deal? Or can you construct a contract to where, Okay, it's a 5-year, but there's maybe an easy out after year 2 or year 3. I think, if I'm Minnesota, why depending on how your season goes, your playoff run here, why yeah, I think you'd be stupid. You'd be stupid to not at least approach it and try to figure out a way to bring Donald back. Unless he's just like, you know what, I want a long-term deal or it's boatload of cash. I'm gonna cash in on my season and I want to be one of the highest paid players, one of the highest paid quarterbacks out there based off on this one. Okay, well then maybe it changes it a little bit, but no, I think Minnesota would be dumb to not try to figure out a way to bring Sam Darnold back. So that's just my opinion. If I was running Minnesota, last one here because then I'm going to run out of time here. Receive or defer. Um, where did it go here? Let me bring it up. Receive or defer. Excuse me. Receive or defer. Receiver defer is Christian Watson, the most important offensive player not named Jordan Love or Josh Jacobs. Well, I think he's proven how much of a factor he can be within his offense and how much the offense changes without him. He may not light up the stat sheets and box scores, but when he's not on the field, he absolutely changes how the offense or what Matt LaFleur and the offense wants to do. Perfect example against Minnesota. Minnesota played more man coverage than what they used to. Why? Christian Watson wasn't in there. They didn't have to factor in for a deep play, big threat from Christian Watson. So they played more man. Christian Watson, I think, is an undervalued blocker in this thing. We didn't have any big plays from Green Bay's offense. Christian Watson wasn't in there to help that, whether it was taking the top off and opening up the field for others or himself making big plays. I think a case could be made for that. I still say Jane Reed's a part of that. I would like to see Jane Reed get a little bit more involved. I'd like to see Tucker Kraft, get some more opportunities over there too. But Christian Watson is absolutely one of the most important players on this offense for it to keep rolling. All right, 2 in, 1 more. We'll be back after these news updates. Third and final hour kicking off right now. Hope they're all off to a fantastic start on this Thursday morning, January 2nd. A big thanks for tuning in wherever, however you may be tuning in from. Coming up, bottom of the hour, we'll do some outdoor chats with our DNR warden, Mr. Jake Boakes, answering your questions. A big thanks to everybody who has texted in their questions. So we'll get those over to Jake coming up a little bit, only about 20, 25 minutes or so. We got that. We'll do some picks and predicts at the back end of this hour. We do have one more game in the college football playoff to pick after the postponement of the Notre Dame and Georgia game that was supposed to be played last night. That kickoff is going to be at 3 p.m. today. Also, Bucks and Timberwolves are also back in action tonight for a little hoops talk out there. Pro Bowl rosters are out. I know everybody's been waiting to see the Pro Bowl rosters. Who made it? Who didn't? Well, got two NFC North quarterbacks in there. Not Jordan Love, but your NFC quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels, Sam Darnold, and Jared Goff. AFC, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. So who made it for Green Bay? Green Bay has 3 Pro Bowlers. Xavier McKinney, Josh Jacobs, and Rashawn Gary were named to the Pro Bowl. Alternates for the Packers, Elton Jenkins, Jordan Love, Kenny Clark, Keyshawn Nixon, Tucker Kraft, Josh Myers, and Jaire Alexander. So those are your first alternate is Elton Jenkins. So, I mean, chances are Elton Jenkins, if the Packers don't go to Super Bowl, Elton Jenkins will be on the Pro Bowl roster there. But that's McKinney is the lone starter for this. It looks like, yeah, the lone starter for this. So I hope nobody's all up in arms, like saying, how the HE double hockey sticks is Rashawn Gary a Pro Bowl player in there? How is Jaire Alexander? I hope nobody's getting up in arms about this. It's the Pro Bowl, for crying out loud. Okay. It's a popularity contest. All right. Should Zach Tom have made it in there? Absolutely. So but the only thing that if you want to be up in arms about is like, okay, somebody missed out on a bonus. Because that's part of contracts. If you make a Pro Bowl, hey, you get a bonus for some people. I'm sure Rashawn Gary is probably going to get a bonus for making a Pro Bowl. I don't care who's in, who's not in for the Pro Bowl. I don't care about that anymore. Again, I think All-Star games and Pro Bowls are more for the younger fans, for the kids out there and such, especially now with it being like flag football and that. This was a question we had from a couple people, and I saw this trending a little bit on social media. Maybe I'm in the minority on this one, but this question now, should the Packers be super aggressive and maybe get a guy like T. Higgins in free agency next year? And a couple of you had sent that in as for your New Year's resolutions for the Packers' New Year's goals is to make a play for a guy like T. Higgins and get a number one, quote unquote, number one wide out there. I mean, if they get him, cool, awesome, great. I'm not going to be upset about it. I'm not going to be upset that they're going to fork over a ton of cash for a wide receiver. Do I think they necessarily need him, that it's a main priority to go get him? No, I don't. Maybe I'm in the minority on that, but we had one texter say, if you look at the top teams in the league, they all have one thing in common. It's a number one wideout. I think that's kind of a blanket statement. I mean, there's quite a few teams that you have up there that are, yes, they've got number one wideouts, legit number one wideouts, if you look at them. I mean, if you look at Philly, you could say probably A.J. Brown. If you look at Minnesota, you're going to say Justin Jefferson. If you're going to say Detroit, you're going to say Amon St. Brown. So, yes, there are. If you're going to say Tampa, because they're a playoff team, Mike Evans, of course. Rams, Puka, Cooper, whatever. Yes, they've got top talents. But you look at Buffalo. Josh Allen might win an MVP, and he doesn't. I wouldn't say he has a number one wide receiver. Sure, Amari Cooper's on there, but Amari Cooper's not Amari Cooper anymore. I mean, this year, Amari Cooper's 297 receiving yards in 8 games played. Amari Cooper is not the Amari Cooper from when he was drafted by the Raiders or even a little bit with Dallas or early years of Cleveland. Can you name Buffalo's top leading receiver without looking it up? It's not Keon Coleman, the rookie. It's not Dalton Kincaid. It's Khalil Shakir, 821 receiving yards. Jane Reed's got more than that. All right, excuse me. Jane Reed does not have more, but he's like 11 yards behind him. You look at Kansas City. Yes, they've got Travis Kelce, a name, but Travis Kelce, who isn't going to play this year, will have finished with little over 800 yards receiving, which is the lowest, if we don't count his rookie year, which is the lowest of his career. If we don't count his rookie year where he only played 1 game, Travis Kelce will finish with the lowest amount of yards in his career, 823. Yeah, they got DeAndre Hopkins there. DeAndre Hopkins is not DeAndre Hopkins anymore. Is he still a good player? He's still a good player, but I wouldn't say he's a number one wide receiver. I don't know if Xavier Worthy will be a number one wide receiver. He could be, potentially. He played every single game this year, but 638 yards. So, yeah, there are some teams out there that have the number one wide receiver, but not all the top teams out there. So I don't, if we get to March and it's the first day of free agency and all of a sudden Green Bay's signing T. Higgins or whoever, I'm not going to be mad. We may have a little conversation or a little debate or banter about it back and forth. I'm not going to be mad about it. Do I think it's a priority? Do I think it's a top need? No, I don't. I don't think it is. And I think it is funny how we go in cycles of these conversations, because when Green Bay did have Devontae, you had a group of fans say, spread the ball out more. Stop targeting Devontae all the time when Aaron was there. And then when the whole narrative before this season began, the whole talking point was, well, does Green Bay have a number one wide receiver? Majority of fans say they don't need a number one. They got a lot of guys. And now it's kind of like flipped back to, now you've got a group of fans out there saying they need a number one. Going back and forth on this thing. I think they could probably do a better job in certain passing situations to maybe focus on a few different players. But you look at what Green Bay has done in terms of their passing game this year. Their philosophy isn't to go out there and throw the ball 35 to 40 times. That's just that's not what they want to do this year. They've been focused on running the football with Josh Jacobs. I mean, there's been quite a few games here with Jordan Love in a lineup where he's thrown for under 20 times. 20 times. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. So, I guess it's more of your personal preference at this point in time. I just feel like they've got, if they go out in free agency next year and they have some cash to spend and they're going to go do a little shopping, I'd prioritize a corner first, regardless if Jaire's on the roster or not. I'd be looking at that. Maybe a linebacker to pair up with Cooper. I don't know if they would be in the market for an edge rusher, because I don't think they're going to want to give up on Lucas Van Ness after 2 years and Rashawn Gary and such. But maybe they could add another one, part of the rotation, maybe another defensive lineman in there. Who knows? That's just my opinion, my belief on it. So, good question, but that's going to be a talking point as the season rolls along and into the offseason and such. Chris with the text saying they absolutely do not need to spend a lot of money on a number one wide receiver. It's just people panicking over one game against Minnesota where their passing game took a hit. It proves the point of how important Christian Watson is to this lineup. Another texter, don't have a name, says, don't spend a bunch of money on a receiver in free agency. They're fine with where they're at right now. Plenty of talented playmakers, only one football to go around. Okay. So keep your texts coming. Keep your thoughts coming. Hit me up, 715-830-1912 on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line, or you can join in on the video stream here this morning. Reminder, video stream, if you want to see my ugly mug, you can pop it up on the TV too. If you got like a smart TV, download the YouTube app and pop it up there. Place of business, throw it up over there, all that good stuff if you want. So send those puppies on over. All right, send them on over. I think I'm going to save my Matt LaFleur talk for tomorrow. Yeah, I want to save because there's been some talk about Matt LaFleur. No, let's just jump into it now. Why save it for tomorrow? We got about 10 minutes before Jake gets in here. But I want to know your thoughts, Packers fans, about Matt LaFleur and his, do we call it style? Or how he is as I mean, there's been a lot of talk these last few days, and maybe it's more so on the socials because, once in a while you get down a deep, dark path on social media, and I'll tell you what, there's more times than not, I just wanna delete social media. But, I mean, there's a talk, especially after that Minnesota game, you had a lot of people saying, Kevin O'Connell outcoached Matt LaFleur, and a lot of talk about LaFleur's how he acts on the sideline, antics. I don't know what the best way to describe it is, but he's an emotional coach on the sideline. I think that's fair to say, right? He's a very emotional coach on the sideline. And I was thinking about this back and forth. And I saw this thought being floated out there. Is that does LaFleur at times, maybe more so in the beginning of games or such, but is he so animated or so maybe wound up is the best way to and let's be real here too. For a lot of us, it's very hard to tell watching on a TV set. We're not in the locker room. We're not in the meeting rooms. We don't know what it's like behind closed doors, whatever the case may be. But there's this thought out there is LaFleur sometimes a little bit too wound up, a little too uptight that sometimes the team kind of takes on the personality of the coach and they play a little tight at the beginning of the game instead of playing a little bit loose? And is that a direct relation to Matt LaFleur? And I've been thinking about this for the last couple of days because we see he's a very animated coach at times on the sidelines. And I go back to a quote Robert Saleh said after the Jets beat the Packers. It was the last year of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was a starter. And I go back to, remember, this is Matt LaFleur's BFF, best friend forever. And the quote was, I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, but he said, we knew if we put them out to deep water, they would drown. And at that time, it was like, okay, interesting quote. I think it's a little bit more interesting, too, considering it's coming from a guy who's incredibly close to LaFleur. But, when that talk was starting to get out there about, LaFleur, is he a little wound up? He's a little bit tight. And does that take the reflection? Does that kind of feed into the team and all that sort of stuff? And then I went back to that Robert Saleh quote, and I'm like, yeah, this was the quote here. This was from Robert Saleh. This was after the game against the Jets. The mindset to go 60 minutes and to give them 60% more and just keep giving them body blow after body blow after body blow and just keep hitting them in the mouth. O-line, just keep pushing and just keep leaning on them. And we felt like if we could just keep taking them down to deep water, they'll find out they can't swim. I've gone back and forth on this. I've gone back and forth on this mindset. It's so I've just gone to the conclusion, I don't know if I can come up with an answer just watching it on TV. I don't mind. I don't know why some people are so upset that sometimes LaFleur gets animated on the sidelines. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. Is he maybe as stoic or calm and cool or collective as when the TV camera pans over to a guy like Kevin O'Connell or some of these other coaches? Probably not. I guess I don't necessarily mind it. I don't mind it. As long as you just win ball games, that's all I care about. I don't care how a coach goes about. Just the only thing that matters to me when it comes to a coach is win some dang games. Win some ball games. Matt LaFleur has won a bunch of ball games. And there's sometimes, as coaches too, where, if you're sitting on the sideline, it's like, okay, how many times do we say, I want to see some energy? That was a knock on Mike McCarthy from a lot of Packers fans over the years too, was like, let's see some emotion, let's see some energy. Let's see something out there. I mean, for crying out loud, I don't know if anybody saw this quote from the Colts head coach. And I mean, the Colts got drug under the carpet from Pat McAfee and such. But this was a quote from Shane Steichen, head coach of the Colts, because they got called out for a lot of stuff and guys being late to meetings or practice or whatever. And this was a quote from Shane Steichen. I think with any team, right? Not everyone's going to be on time every time, but there is accountability. Guys are held to a standard, and as talked about in house. You have a head coach. This is the total opposite of Vince Lombardi and Lombardi time. I get it, different eras, whatever. But you have a coach out there publicly saying, not everyone's going to be on time every time. Sounds so nonchalant. Sounds like there's like, I was surprised to see a head coach say that, to throw that out there. As long as we're not talking about that stuff when it comes to a guy like Matt LaFleur or whatever, I'm okay. Just win ball games. Just win ball games. I don't care if he gets a little animated on the sidelines. I don't care if he's getting caught in the heat of the moment and such. Is there something about being maybe a little, wound tight before the games, and does the team kind of feed off that, or yeah, I'm sure there is. And I'm not saying Matt LaFleur is perfect by any means. I thought he could have done a much better job in that Minnesota game, getting into a little bit more of a rhythm. I get it. I understand it. Josh Jacobs fumbling in the first drive doesn't help matters. But the defense did a good job not allowing any points. It just felt like LaFleur wasn't getting into that rhythm. Was it the second drive? I think it was the second drive where it was like 3 straight passes. And I get it. You're still in your scripted plays in that. But it felt like, okay, let's get Love into a little bit of a rhythm here. Let's get into a little bit more, shorter passes. Let's start to get back into that rhythm. It's okay. We got the fumble. Move on. No damage done. No points were scored. Let's kind of reset. Let's get our quarterback in a rhythm. Let's get back to running the football. Those are some of the issues sometimes I have with LaFleur. So I want to get in that, because when LaFleur is on, when he's in a zone, we know when that offense is just humming. We saw it last year at the back end. We saw it at many points this year too. It's always like when it feels like he's a step ahead of the defensive coordinator. Like that Dallas playoff game last year, or other games there too. And we've seen it this year where it's always a step ahead. I think he's a great play caller. But I feel like there's at times though that it's just, okay, let's maybe not overthink it at times. Let's just take a step back. Let's take a deep breath, okay? Let's take a deep breath. We're pumped. We're excited. We're going up against a division rival. Let's just get into a little bit of a rhythm, okay? Let's get into a little bit of a rhythm. All right, let's take a quick break here. Switching gears here, we got some outdoor chats. Jake Bulks is going to be joining us here in just a few minutes. A big thanks to those of you who have sent over questions. If you got any more questions, hold on to them for next week when we talk to Jake. So, all right, let's take that quick break if my computer wants to work here. There we go. All right, quick break. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Glasshandmirror.com, an equal opportunity employer.
Joe Montana here. In my football days, I knew the importance of a strong defense. Now I'm sharing how you can help defend your health against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease. Are you 50 or older like me? The CDC now recommends vaccination against pneumococcal disease. Even if you're healthy, your age puts you at increased risk and over 6 times greater risk of hospitalization with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50. Schedule your appointment today at vaxassist.com.
Sponsored by Pfizer. Are you an annoying know-it-all? Answering questions no one asked of you? Do people often ask you, how do you sleep at night? Then you should go to Mattress Firm. They have knowledgeable sleep experts specifically trained to help match you with the right mattress, so anyone, even people like you, can sleep. Get matched at Mattress Firm. Sleep at night. Restrictions apply. See store or website for details.
America is kept safe because the Army National Guard responds, protects, and supports our nation when it needs them most. The Army National Guard responds to disasters such as wildfires and floods. They protect us with missile defense, cybersecurity, and civilian support teams for chemical, biological, and radiological hazards. Be there for your community and your country. Visit NationalGuard.com to learn more about part-time service. Sponsored by the Wisconsin Army National Guard. Aired by the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association and this station.
Get 15% off everything you can fit in the bag at Menards and ring in the new year with bathroom savings you must see to believe. Magic Woods has the vanity you need to complete your dream bathroom. Check out our great selection of over 100 Magic Woods vanities. Get an Everdale bathroom cabinet on sale for $499.99 through January 12th. Plus, get 15% off everything you can fit in the bag. See store for complete details.
Save big money at Menards.
In our corner of Wisconsin, we tend to get overlooked sometimes by our favorite sports teams. Sure, once in a while, a local bar will get a shout out or a team tour will make a quick stop, but we are just as passionate about our Packers, Bucks, Badgers, and Brewers as everyone else. That's why we've created the 715 Fan Cave. It's a place for fans to gather and talk sports and show their love for their favorite teams. For more info, just visit sportstalk1051.com.
Cruising on through on this Thursday morning. We've got some picks and predicts coming up at, about 15, 20 minutes or so. Reminder, we've got another college football playoff game to be picked. Notre Dame versus Georgia, kickoff at 3 p.m. And then Bucks and Timberwolves are also in action tonight. If you want to play along with our pick'ems, send us your picks for those three games by hitting us up with a quick text on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line, 715-830-1912. It's time, though, to catch up with our good buddy, Mr. Jake Boakes, Conservation Warden for the great state of Wisconsin. Jake, Happy New Year's, man. How was the holiday break for you?
Happy New Year's. It was good. Came down with a bug. The whole family got sick.
Oh, man.
Family's got like that. But it was good. Pretty crazy to kind of get back in the swing of things today after a couple of days off.
Yeah, same here, man. Was Santa good with the kiddos in your household?
Oh, yeah. Santa somehow knew exactly what to get them, and especially my son. I think I mentioned before we went on break that there was some of these toys that I was excited about.
I know.
And his first one from Santa, he really liked. It was a toy truck hauler, like a Hot Wheels thing, and he's been playing with it ever since.
Nice. My little guy got his first 22 from Santa, so we've already been out in the woods and testing it out and shooting it out. So he's loving it right now.
That's always a fun Christmas when you get your first rifle or gun. So congrats, That's cool.
It is cool.
It's fun as a dad too.
I know, right? It's just like, okay, it's got my 22 out too. It's been a while since I shot that, so it's at that age too where you can start to do that sort of stuff. And now he's already eyeing up bows and that sort of stuff. So
there you go.
Fun time, man, for sure. Hey, we got a couple questions here from listeners. So let me start it off. This was from Rodney a little bit earlier. He said, question for Warden Jake. If I pickle fish, does that jar count towards my total possessions count? I assume it does. Happy New Year.
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. So the short answer is, yeah, it's still anything edible still counts towards your possession limit. So pickled fish or whatever you do with it until you eat it, it's still part of your possession limit, or gift it or do whatever you want with it. Otherwise you could just go harvest walleye every day and throw it in a jar and call it good. When a fish or animal kind of comes off your possession limit is when you do like taxidermy with it. So any taxidermied animals on your wall or wherever, those don't count towards your possession limit. But anything that's still edible and you're going to utilize, yeah.
Good point. I never would have thought of that. Yeah, that is a really good question. So Dave had asked one a little bit earlier too. I think it's just a general question. Any I guess reports, I don't know if this was a thing, but any wolf sightings in the city of Eau Claire have you heard about?
Not that I heard about. And generally anything like that we'd get a call on, or I'd get a call on at a minimum from dispatch or a text message. I didn't hear anything on it, so I can't say I'm aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
If there is anything, I mean, coyotes are very common, very, very common in the city. And even I think last 2 falls ago, maybe they coyotes attacked a dog down at the wells. But nothing with a wolf that I'm aware of, at least.
So with what you just mentioned, if a coyote does attack a dog, what should somebody do? Should they call a DNR, police, or what's kind of the protocol for something like that?
Yeah, I would call 911 because it's more of a even though it's a wild animal, it's more of a kind of a city issue, just based off what's going on. You should call 911 to make sure everything's safe. Like the coyote, someone can respond really quickly to make sure the coyote isn't doing something else. But then the city will work through with wherever this is happening. And if it is an issue where, the DNR or wildlife department or DADCAP or whatever needs to come in and remove the animal, we'll work hand in hand with them. But if you have anything when you're in any sort of city limits, the best starting spot is with your local PD or sheriff's department, and then they'll get us involved if needed.
Hmm. Interesting. So, obviously, too, Jake, with the warmer weather that we had last week, I got to imagine it affected some of the ice fishing in the waterways around here. Now,
Oh yeah.
sounds like it's going to be colder here, but would you imagine some of the ice levels here probably still maybe not the safest out there because of that warm weather last week?
Yeah, even on the coldest winter day, you never know with currents and springs and stuff. But especially with that warm spell we just had, any ice that wasn't as thick as the surrounding ice was obviously going to be probably thawing at a way quicker level. I saw different lakes and pictures with water on top of the ice, which is obviously going to thaw it and kind of make it hard to navigate, stuff like that. And then what's going to happen is with this cold spell, all that water or mush, slush, or whatever is going to freeze, and then we're going to have these, couple layers of ice, and you might have a spot where you break through and there's a little bit of water, but then the real ice starts, and it might get a little messy depending on how much snow was on top of that lake before this all happened and stuff. So just like in the early season and the late season of winter, when you go out there, you definitely bring a spud bar or check the thickness and ice conditions as you're going out to a spot, especially if you haven't been there yet this year.
This might be just kind of a stupid question, but just, because you see some of these big fancy ice houses like on social media, Facebook or whatever.
Yeah.
Is there any regulations on size of your ice houses, ice shanties, or is it pretty much anything can go out there as long as it's not too big to where it's going to go through the ice or
Yeah.
something?
No, that's exactly what it is. At least in Wisconsin. Now, I can't speak for other states. I don't know if they have weight restrictions or different things like that. But the Wisconsin ice, frozen water is, there's rules, don't get me wrong. You got to have most machines still have to be registered. Motor vehicles have to be registered. Got to follow, other laws. But when you get out there, you can drive machines that you normally couldn't drive in other places, and there's no weight restrictions, there's no size limits. So if you wanted to bring a bus pulling a 20-foot trailer out there, you could, but you're risking a pretty hefty tow bill or recovery salvage bill as well as your life. So that's really what it comes down to, is just being smart, using common sense, and bring out there what's appropriate for the conditions and appropriate for the ice thickness.
Before I let you go here, Jake, because we only got a couple more days left for the can I just call it the typical archery or crossbow season here, because that's done on the 5th. But maybe another reminder here too that there's that extended season. Was it the metro subunits and counties with extended archery seasons? Is there any of those counties around us that are in that? Do you know?
Yeah, Eau Claire's one of them. So that archery season will actually go through the end of the month. I believe Dunn County closes in a couple days, but I don't have the map in front of me. So if you're going to go out, you got to double check this. But I'm pretty sure Eau Claire and then some of the other counties south of us have the extended archery season. So I would take a look at that if you're looking for some more deer hunting, and stuff like that. Definitely pull that map up in our regulations. Eau Claire will be open, but I know there's some counties south of us, so there's plenty of opportunity yet for deer hunting, which is crazy to think about in 2025 already.
I know, like, I remember when I was a kid, it was, like, kind of like when New Year's was here, it was like that was it, and
Yep.
see you back in September, essentially. So, is it same archery rules for the counties that are in that extended one, same
Yep.
archery rules?
Yeah, it's your basic late season bow hunting. As long as you still have an unfilled buck tag, you can still shoot bucks. No group hunting or party hunting when it comes to archery, but if there's still bonus antlerless tags, you can go grab some. You don't have to wear blaze orange. There's no more gun deer season. So it's kind of like just your basic archery season. It's just in January instead of September or October.
And I know for some of the trapping, we got some seasons that are still open through
Yep.
February, and then Bobcats at the end of the month, correct?
Yeah, so the first season of Bobcat came and gone, and the second season will be coming up, and there's some other, there's other seasons that are going to be extending, like otter and this and that. So most of trapping is still good to go. Definitely, depending on what species you want to target, dive into that regulations and figure out what you can and can't do when the season starts or whatnot. But besides, deer hunting ending, there's a couple other hunting seasons ending, but when it comes to ice fishing and trapping and some year-round seasons like coyote hunting, those are still full go.
All right, good stuff there. Jake, as always, man, we appreciate the time you give us every morning, and a big thanks to all those all of you who sent over texts. We'll enjoy the rest of the week, continue to recover with the family, and we'll catch up with you again next week if you're up for it, bud.
Thanks. Yeah, it's always fun. It's a good start this is the first thing I've done since the new year, so it's a good way to start the job coming into the new year. So appreciate it.
Appreciate it, buddy. There you go. Jake Boakes, conservation warden for the state of Wisconsin. Don't forget, you can always text us those questions, 715-830-1912, if you ever have a question for Mr. Boakes there. All right, we'll take our final break, and then it's picks and predicts, and we're done already on this Thursday morning. Quick break. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Wrapping things up here this morning with some picks and predicts brought to you by the Elbow Room, located in Eau Claire, right next to the Banbury Place. Don't forget, too, with the final week of the regular season, if you are a part of our Pro Football Weekly Pick'em Challenge, to get your picks in before the games this weekend. Got some on Saturday, too, so you want to make sure you get those games in. No Thursday night football, so you don't have to worry about tonight and such. But don't forget to get your final picks in for the weekend. We've got some playoff ones, I believe, also added on there, too. So get to our website, again, sportstalk1051.com, and click on the Fan Cave tab. And, yeah, I mean, if you've been making picks for 17 weeks, you already know where it's at right now. So, all right, let's start it off with some hoops games tonight. So we've got Pacers at the Heat. Ooh, I'm gonna go Pacers in this one. I'll go with the Pacers. Let's do Clippers at OKC. Give me the Thunder. Phillies at Golden State. I'll ride with the Warriors tonight. And let's do Boston at Minnesota. I'm gonna go with the Celtics. Sorry, T-Wolves. Brooklyn, and then the Bucks, the Milwaukee Bucks. Got D'Angelo Russell's over there now. Bucks favored by a whopping 13.5 points for the game tonight. I'll go with the Bucks win, but they don't cover. I don't think they're going to win by 14 tonight. I'll go with the Bucks win, but I don't think they cover. And then we've got college football playoffs. The game that we were supposed to get last night, but postponed due to the awful tragedy in New Orleans with the New Year's Eve incidents there. But so that game postponed to a 3:00 kickoff today, the All-State Sugar Bowl. Notre Dame taking on Georgia. Notre Dame is actually favored by 1 in this game, but I'm going to go with Georgia. I want Notre Dame to win. I'm rooting for Notre Dame to win, but I'm going to go with Georgia. I'll go with Georgia in this one. So, winner of this game, again, will play Penn State. Are we calling it the Final Four? Can they call it the Final? I don't know if they're calling it the Final Four, but the winner will play Penn State. We've got Texas taking on Ohio State in the other matchup. Texas winning in a double overtime against Arizona State yesterday. Ohio State dominating Oregon for that win. And Penn State had one earlier a couple days ago there too. So, again, those are your picks and predicts brought to you by the Elbow Room. Recapping some of our topics of conversation here this morning. Obviously, the big news in Packerland, no more Jaire Alexander for this season unless there is an opportunity, according to Adam Schefter, that if the Packers were to make it to the Super Bowl, Jaire Alexander could potentially play in that game. He underwent arthroscopic knee surgery on Tuesday to alleviate his pain and swelling. He could make it back for the Super Bowl if the Packers made it that far. If we get Dr. Crow on tomorrow, you can definitely know that this is going to be a topic of conversation tomorrow. Also, want to talk about Tank Dell and that gruesome knee injury that he suffered a little over a week ago too. But no Jaire Alexander for the rest of this season and into the postseason. Talked quite a bit about that, how big of a loss this is heading into matchups with some receiving cores in the postseason, whether it's Philly or the Rams or even Tampa with Mike Evans, and of course we know with Minnesota and Detroit involved in there too. But Packers will be back at it again later on today. A little bit of a longer injury report at practice yesterday in their first practice. It was kind of a jog through practice there, but a little bit of a longer one there because you had obviously no Jaire. Zane Anderson did not practice. He had a concussion that he suffered early in the Minnesota game. You had Brenton Cox Jr. did not practice, listed as a foot. Andre Dillard did not practice due to a concussion. Quay Walker still not practicing with his ankle injury. Christian Watson did not practice with his knee injury. Evan Williams with his quadricep did not practice either. Devontae Wyatt, who suffered a concussion in the game against Minnesota, did practice as a full participant. So, what else? So we'll see if anybody else returns to practice here today. coming up here in just a little bit. So, what else do we got here? What else did we talk about? We talked a little bit about the college football playoff. We've been enjoying the games. No, there've been some blowouts and such. At least we had the Texas Arizona State one. Kind of a mixed bag of responses out there from listeners. So we'll see how today's game kind of plays out, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it with Mr. Brandon Burke here tomorrow. We did our New Year's resolutions, New Year goals for our favorite teams. Packers, Brewers, Bucks, Badgers, all that good stuff there. So again, if you missed any of this, moving forward with the Man Cave podcast and such, we're gonna have it. Every episode is gonna have some new content that you didn't hear on the show, but then we're gonna have some show highlights. So that's gonna be moving forward with the Man Cave podcast. So I'll put my New Year's resolutions for the Packers, the Brewers, the Bucks, and the Badgers. In case you missed it, 7:00 hour, those will be up on the Man Cave podcast, along with some other new content over here as well. So, also, Jake Boakes, if you missed our conversation, our outdoor chats with him, those will also be up on the websites through our podcasting as well. So, and don't forget to always, you can text us those questions you have for Jake. Tomorrow, we'll be catching up with Brandon Berg again. We'll do some local sports roundup with him. It's been a little bit, since Festivus, December 23rd, since we last chatted with Brandon. So we'll have quite a bit for our local sports roundup just to kind of get us back in the swing of things here. So we'll talk to him. We'll talk previewing, obviously, a little football Friday, the final regular season game. Packers preparing, going up against the Bears. You know, Bears would love nothing more than to come to Lambeau and give the Packers a loss heading into the postseason, essentially giving them the 7th seed, where they would face the Philadelphia Eagles in that game. So we'll talk about this game. How much, if you're Matt LaFleur, if you were Matt LaFleur, you're the head coach of this ball club, how do you approach this game? Are you of the mindset of like, this is a must win at all costs to put us in a position to be a 6th seed? Or do you think it doesn't matter that much from a 6 to a 7? I think there's a little bit different, obviously. You know, Philly worries me. I'd probably rather take my punches going up against the Rams, although the Rams could be scary, or Tampa. They could be kind of scary there too. I don't think there's any easy matchups in this thing. How do you approach this when you've got some guys who are a little bit banged up? Do you say, okay, if you're a little bit banged up, you got a nagging thing, you're not going to play in this game? We'll get ready for the postseason there. How do you approach this? We'll talk about that coming up tomorrow, and maybe we'll even have a little bit of a better idea of how he's going to approach this after today's practice report. He did talk about it a little bit yesterday. He did say starters were going to play if they're healthy to go and that, but he did acknowledge that, if you're kind of going through something, if there's a guy that's, a little bit banged up in that, they're going to be mindful of that, heading into the postseason and such. So, but we'll talk all about that tomorrow on a Football Friday coming at you. And then, as I mentioned, hopefully catching up with Dr. Crow. Lots to talk about with him for our Inside the Training Room segment. Let's catch up on a couple texts before Shot Clock cuts us off for the rest of this Thursday morning. Going back to a few texts here again. If I missed some of them, I apologize. I'm trying to scroll through some of them. Mike, a little bit earlier, said that hope to see better defensive backs and a better pass rush. I'm assuming that was for some New Year's resolutions over there. You had Derek a little bit earlier talking about Jaire. Maybe I'm in the minority on this, but I would still like to see Jaire back next year. Maybe they can come to some agreements in terms of a pay cuts based off of the number of games he has played the last couple of years. I feel like if they move on from him, then they're really in a big hole at the cornerback position. This was from C-Bomb a little bit earlier too. If healthy, must keep 23, but will the PCL linger? May need to find a free agency cornerback if questions around the knee on 23. I know we talked a little bit about PCL injuries with Dr. Crow and such, but probably a good reminder for tomorrow and such if we get to catch up with him. Tim also had a text a little bit earlier coming to the Packers. Tim saying, I don't understand why Packers fans are so down on Christian Watson. If there was a game that proved his worth, it was that game against Minnesota this past week, and the offense clearly missed him, and they weren't able to do many of the things that they wanted to do on offense with him not in the lineup. I think he is one of the top key players on this offense, easily top 5 in my opinion. This was from Steve talking about number 1 wide receivers. I don't think Green Bay needs to go out and spend on a top flight wide receiver in free agency. I like the fact that they've got multiple weapons they can spread the ball to and really focusing on the running game with Josh Jacobs. Let's not overreact to just one game against Minnesota this past weekend. And then one more texter here. Eric had said a little bit earlier. Eric had said, I hope Jaire is back next year. Obviously, health is going to be a key issue with him. I understand he's got a big contract and hasn't played a ton of games, and maybe hasn't lived up to that contract. But when he's healthy, he's still a top corner in this league. I hope they don't give up on him too quickly. Okay, good stuff. Big thanks for everybody for tuning in and texting us or commenting on the video stream. Love it when you guys participate and give me your input and opinions and such. Keep those rolling, all right? Keep those coming, okay? Shot clock's going to cut me off. DP Dance, they're up next. We're going to be back at it again tomorrow. Football Friday already. Packers, Bears. Last game at Lambeau. Anybody going to the game? Last game at Lambeau this year. Right? Unless something weird happens in the postseason. Green Bay gets 60, and no, I don't even know that. No, it would work out. They'd play a 7. But anybody going to the game? Last time for this year? All right. Have a good Thursday, everybody. We'll be back at it again tomorrow morning.